Hey guys, in our last session, Tronald was led through the grand corridors of the keep to meet with Lord Jyden, revealing his true identity and the dire threat approaching the city. His heartfelt plea, laden with the weight of his past and the urgency of the present, convinced Lord Jyden of the impending danger posed by the Obitus. Acknowledging the corruption within the capital and the honor in Tronald's plea, Lord Jyden instructed his men to prepare the city's defenses, treating Tronald's commands as his own. The city sprang to life with activity as guards and citizens alike readied themselves for the imminent battle. You all made a bomb, composed of lots of explosive materials, a bag of holding, and some clever usage of the spell Gylf of Warding. Moving on to the battlements, Celestia, Might, and Tronald observed an eerie purple energy coalescing around Cass in the distance. The tension mounted as the arcane power grew, forming a dense, throbbing point of energy. Suddenly, a thunderous shockwave erupted, nearly knocking the party off the wall. As the earth groaned and trembled, thousands of undead hands began clawing their way out of the ground. Skeletal warriors and decaying corpses surged upward, summoned by the dark ritual.
Did you just say Gylf of Warding?
Ah, shit, my bad, man. I meant Glyph of Warding. None of you have access to Gylf of Warding yet.
I don't know whether I'm intrigued or concerned.
How about both?
Anyway, regardless of future spells that may or may not include Gylfs, what's the plan, guys?
I want to see what's going on, Joe. Are they charging towards us or what?
Yeah, I won't make you roll for this. Celestia, you peer over the battlements, straining to see through the dim light of the night. You see thousands upon thousands of undead, a grotesque sea of skeletal warriors and decaying corpses. They rock back and forth in place, their movements unnervingly synchronized, as if waiting for a command. Among the mass of undead, you notice something even more terrifying. Slowly but surely, digging their way out of the ground, are huge figures. These are no ordinary undead. They are zombie ogres, hundreds of them, their massive forms looming over the skeletal hordes. Their slow emergence adds an extra layer of dread to the scene, their rotting flesh and enormous size making them even more fearsome. Then, without warning, roughly 2,000 of these undead creatures break into a run. Their movements are swift and relentless as they charge away from the city walls, disappearing into the darkness, their footfalls creating a thunderous, receding echo. The remaining undead, including the towering zombie ogres, stay perfectly still, their eerie stillness contrasting sharply with the sudden burst of movement. They stand there, a silent force, waiting for whatever comes next.
Well, that's fucking weird.
Hey, Tronald, I really think we should start firing the wall-mounted ballistas. They will surely reach.
I'm inclined to agree with you now, buddy. Joe, I want to have a look around. How many warriors do we have on our side? How many are on the ground? And how many are on the walls?
On the ground, you estimate around 300 city guards. They are patrolling the streets, manning the gates, and readying defenses within the city. Alongside them, about 4,000 untrained civilians have taken up arms. These civilians, though inexperienced, are determined to defend their homes. They show varying levels of readiness and skill. On the walls, you see approximately 200 guards stationed on the battlements. They are manning siege engines, crossbows, and bows, preparing to defend the city from the high ground.
Ooh, the high ground. I think we've already won, guys.
What makes you say that?
Well, it's been proven that having the high ground increases one's odds exponentially.
That's true, although I don't agree with you that we have already won. In fact, if they manage to find a way to breach the walls, I think it would be over for us. Do they look scared, Joe? The guards and the militia, that is.
The everyday citizens, hastily armed and untrained, look pretty terrified, as you can imagine. Their faces are pale, their eyes wide with fear. The knowledge that they've been called to action speaks for itself. Fathers, grandfathers, and young men who have never held a weapon now clutch spears and swords with trembling hands. The guards down below, patrolling the streets and manning the gates, seem more confident. Yet there's a tension in the air, a shared understanding of the seriousness of the situation. However, the guards atop the walls, who are witnessing the full horror of the undead horde and the towering zombie ogres, seem absolutely terrified. Their faces are etched with fear, eyes darting nervously from the enemy to their comrades. Some grip their weapons tightly, whilst others are holding them so loosely that they could clatter to the floor at any moment.
Look at them. They're terrified, all of them.
Huh? And you're not?
Of course I am. I'd have to be stupid not to be.
Joe, how much ammo do the wall-mounted ballistas have?
Celestia, as you make your way along the battlements, you approach the nearest ballista. The massive weapon stands ready, its wooden frame sturdy and menacing. You begin a stock check, inspecting the ammunition crates nearby. The bolts are long and thick, each one capable of piercing through multiple undead. As you count the bolts, a guard nearby notices your concern and approaches. We've got around 50 bolts for each of the ballistas. It's far from endless, but we should be able to take a few of them out if we aim true.
50 for each, is that it?
He scratches his head, looking a bit sheepish. Aye, 50 for each. Believe it or not, we don't tend to actually need them all that much. This city's been pretty peaceful, and we never expected something like this to happen. He gestures around, indicating the sheer scale of the defenses and the unexpected nature of the threat. We keep them mainly as reserves, for the occasional bandit raid or wild beast that gets too close. Nothing like this. This is something out of a nightmare. We're doing what we can, but we're not exactly a fortress built for war.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just wanted to double check. Right. Joe, I want to make my way back over to Tronald and let him know.
Okay, you make your way back over to Tronald, Celestia. Now we jump back to Raarh. Raarh, you're stood outside the shop, Eldoria's Curios and Antiquities. It's eerily quiet, the silence almost deafening. Most of the activity is either far behind you, where the guards are preparing to defend the city, or ahead of you, where women and children are gathering in the most inner levels for safety. What would you like to do?
Well, I need to get inside. So, I think the most logical thing for me to do is to bust down the door with my greatsword.
Of course you do. Raarh. Abandoning any attempt of knocking, you raise your greatsword and begin slashing. Slash after slash after slash, the heavy blade bites into the wood, sending splinters flying. The door, sturdy but no match for your strength, quickly becomes little more than a pile of kindling. With a final, decisive strike, the remains of the door crash to the ground, leaving the entrance open before you. You venture inside. The shop is dimly lit by a few lanterns that have been left burning, whilst the air is tinged with the scent of old parchment, polished wood, and the faint tang of metal. Shelves line the walls, crowded with an eclectic assortment of trinkets, curiosities, and ancient relics. Books and scrolls are piled haphazardly on tables, while strange artifacts and oddities fill glass cases. The faint creak of the wooden floorboards groan under your feet as you move deeper inside, guided by the magnetic pull of Nepthetka's greatsword.
Alrighty then, I'm inside, Mr. Nepthet. What exactly am I looking for?
Seek thee a remnant of mine own mortal form, a fragment of my very essence. What piece it shall be, I know not. It could be a bone, a lock of hair, or perhaps a shard of flesh. Let thy instincts guide thee, and thou shalt find the vestige that holds my power.
Cool. So, does like each part of your body give like an extra buff to me and the sword?
Indeed. Thou art already aware of this, Raarh. Each fragment of mine own form doth enhance the power of the blade, binding more of my old self unto it. The larger the fragment, the greater the boon bestowed upon thee, and the weapon.
So, Mr. Nepthet, what kind of power would your peni grant? Maybe a charisma buff?
Jesus Christ, man, really?
What? It's a valid question, and I demand a valid answer.
Whatever, man. There's a moment of stunned silence before Nepthet's voice returns, laden with a mix of mortification and reluctant contemplation.
Such a question is unseemly. Yet, I suppose, 'tis a possibility. The power of my peni, as thou so crudely put it, might indeed bestow a buff to thy charismatic prowess. Though I confess the thought had never crossed mine ancient mind.
Neat. All right, Joe. I'm going to begin looking for a mummified cock.
Dude, you do realize that the chances of the part of Nepthet being his godlyhood is highly unlikely.
Joe, I want to begin searching for it.
Give me an investigation check, Raarh.
That's a natural 19, Joe.
Of course it is. Raarh. You start scouring the dimly lit shop. You move through the aisles, peering into dusty corners and opening old cabinets, your eyes keenly searching for anything remotely phallic. The shelves are lined with all sorts of trinkets, oddities, and ancient relics, but none quite fit the bill. Eventually, after several minutes of this focused quest, you stumble upon a crate in the far corner of the shop. The wood is worn, and the lid creaks as you pry it open. Inside, to your utter amazement, is a collection of items matching your search criteria. There seems to be a wide variety of objects, all different shapes, sizes, and colors. You stand there, holding one up to the flickering light of a nearby lantern.
Is this it, Nepthet?
No, it's far too small.
Okay, Joe, I get another one out. What about this?
No, that's far too big.
This is harder than I thought it would be. All right, let's try this one. You recognize this one, Nepthet?
No, that's too green.
Well, I'm stumped.
Just to give you a hint, buddy, you get the sense that a cock is not actually what you're supposed to be looking for.
Well, why didn't you just say that at the start?
Dude, that's exactly what I did.
All right, Joe, I continue my quest, this time relying on my sword to guide me rather than my instincts.
You hold the blade out in front of you and let it lead the way. You make your way through the main room and push open a creaky door leading to the back room. The air here is littered with dust motes dancing in the dim light of a solitary lantern hanging from the ceiling. Shelves line the walls, crammed with an assortment of strange items. As soon as you step inside, the sword tugs more insistently, pulling you towards a far corner. You follow its guidance, weaving between old crates and stacks of ancient books. Finally, you come to a stop in front of a tall, ornate clock. The clock is an oddity in itself, its wood dark and messily carved with strange symbols. But the most striking feature is the eyeball set into the center of the clock face. It appears almost lifelike, with an unnerving, glassy gaze that almost follows your every move. The sword vibrates with energy, pointing directly at the clock. The eyeball glistens as if alive, and the feeling of the sword's pull is stronger than ever.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize you were part clock in your prime state, Mr. Nepthet. Makes sense, I guess.
What? How does that make sense, Raarh? I was not a horolog in my primal form. It is not the clock, but the eye you seek. Focus on the eye, Raarh.
Yeah, I knew that. I was only kidding. Joe, I walk up to the clock and pull the eye out of it.
Raarh, you approach the clock. Then you reach out, your fingers brushing against the smooth, glossy surface of the eye. It feels cool to the touch. With a firm grip, you begin to pull. The eye resists at first, as if reluctant to leave its socket within the clock's surface. You apply more force, and with a sudden, unsettling pop, it comes free. You hold the eyeball in your hand, feeling a strange energy emanating from it.
All right, I have it. Now what?
Press it upon the sword, Raarh. Infuse thee together, and let the essence of my past merge with the blade. The power within the eye shall bind to the sword, enhancing its might and unlocking greater potential. Do this, and thou shalt wield a weapon of ever more formidable power.
Ooh, Joe, I press the eye into the sword.
Okay. You hold the eye firmly and press it against the hilt of your greatsword. As the eye makes contact, the runes etched along the blade begin to glow with an intense, almost blinding brilliance. The light pulses, growing brighter and brighter, casting a magnificent glow across the entire room. The energy within the eye seems to merge with the sword, and suddenly a surge of power explodes outward. The force shatters the glass windows of the shop, sending shards flying. Shelves topple, artifacts crashing to the floor in a cacophony of sound. The air is filled with a swirling cloud of dust and debris, the remnants of the violent infusion. As the dust begins to settle, you peer through the haze. The destruction around you is immense, yet your focus is solely on the sword in your hands. The eye is now fully embedded in the hilt, seamlessly integrated into the blade. The runes, still glowing faintly, seem to pulsate with a newfound energy, and the sword feels more powerful, more complete than ever before, one step closer to unlocking its true potential.
Yes, Raarh, thou hast done it. The power within the eye is now one with the blade. Feel the might coursing through thee, the strength of ages past. With this, we are one step closer to reclaiming my true form. Wield the sword with honor, and let none stand in thy way.
Well done, buddy. So this is your new item sheet for the Sword of Nepthet Ka. It retains all its original properties, but now you also permanently have true sight as long as the blade is in your hands. You can cast Holy Weapon on yourself once per long rest, and it also does not require concentration. You also gain the ability to cast Forbiddance once per 7 days.
Spells. You know, I've never really considered myself to be a magic man, Mr. Nepthet. I usually leave that to Tronald.
Keep finding these vestiges, Raarh, and none shall stand in thy way. The power thou shalt wield will be unparalleled, far surpassing this Tronald. He will become but a pitiful insect compared to thee. Embrace the magic within the blade, and thou shalt become a force to be reckoned with. feared by anyone who dare to oppose thee or my will. Continue on this path, and greatness shall be thine.
Whoa there, let's not get too carried away. I'd never view Tronald as an insect. He's my best buddy.
There's no response. It seems like the spirit of Nepthet Ka has faded back into the sword.
Oh, okay. Well, geez. I wonder if I upset him because I called Tronald my best buddy instead of him. Ah well, I'm sure he'll get over it. Right, Joe. Before I head back to everyone else, I want to head back over to the cock box and make myself a necklace from them.
Why, man?
Don't question the green guard!
All right, man, geez, chill out. You managed to make your necklace.
Excellent. I shall wear them with pride, intimidating every foe that crosses my path.
Right. What are you doing now, then? Heading back to the rest of the guys, or what?
Yeah, I head back.
All right, jumping back to the rest of you guys, those of you atop the wall, Celestia, Tronald, and Might, you notice movement on the horizon. The horde of zombies that fled earlier is now slowly making their way back into view, but they're not alone. The thousands of zombies are dragging entire trees behind them, their rotting hands gripping the trunks with an unnatural strength. The trees scrape along the ground, their branches creaking and snapping. Alongside them, other zombies roll enormous rocks, pushing with a relentless mechanical determination. The scale of the scene is almost unbelievable. Thousands of corpses, driven by some dark will, are transforming the landscape into a chaotic mess of dragged trees and displaced earth.
What the hell are they doing now? They're gonna build some kind of bonfire?
I seriously doubt that.
Hey, Tronald, so there's around 50 bolts for each ballista. Want to start giving them some hell?
Yeah, let's send a round of ballista bolts into either the ogres or the actual Obetus members. Avoid aiming for the zombies and skeletons. Joe, I shout out that command.
Tronald, your voice rings out with authority, commanding the soldiers atop the walls. They immediately acknowledge your command. They rush to the ballistae, cranking the massive mechanisms with urgency. The heavy ropes and gears groan as the tension builds. With a coordinated effort, they load the enormous bolts into the ballistae, the metallic clinks and thuds resonating in the tense night air. Each bolt, as thick as a man's arm and tipped with deadly iron, is carefully positioned. The soldiers exchange brief, resolute nods. 4 ballistae, mounted at strategic points along the battlements, are aimed into the seething mass below. The soldiers take aim, their eyes narrowing as they target either the towering zombie ogres or the sinister figures of the Obetus members. Every breath is held in anticipation. With a final adjustment, the soldiers stand ready and turn to you, Tronald, awaiting the signal.
I raise my arm high into the air. I wait a few seconds, then I drop it fast, directing my hand towards the masses below. Fire!
The soldiers, responding instantly, release the tension on the ballistae. The first bolt soars through the night air with a menacing whistle. It strikes true, skewering 3 zombie ogres in one go. The immense force drives the iron tip through the first ogre's chest, tearing through rotten flesh and bone, and then continuing through the second and third, pinning them together like a dirty kebab before they collapse into a heap. The second bolt also finds its mark, striking one of the Obetus members. The force lifts the cloaked figure off their feet, skewering them into the ground. The figure is pinned like an insect on a collector's pin, their dark robes fluttering around the bolt. The third bolt misses the main targets, embedding itself in the skull of a zombie with a sickening crunch. The impact splatters its head, the bolt carrying through the gruesome mess into another zombie behind, sending both to the ground in a spray of decay and rot. The fourth bolt, aimed directly at Cass himself, cuts through the air like a spear of vengeance, its path unwavering and lethal. The deadly missile screams toward its target relentlessly. Just as it seems destined to strike, Cass moves with an almost otherworldly fluidity, his cloak billowing as he steps aside casually. The bolt slices through the space he occupied mere moments before, embedding itself harmlessly into the dirt with a resounding thud. The ground quakes slightly, absorbing the force of the impact, but Cass stands untouched, a cold smile playing at his lips as he surveys the battlefield.
Well, that worked pretty nicely.
Well, let's keep firing then.
Yeah, sod it, Joe. I'm going to command the soldiers to fire at will this time, aiming for just the Obetus members and Kaz himself.
The soldiers once again respond immediately. They begin to prepare the ballistae for open fire, cranking the mechanisms, loading the massive bolts, and aiming them toward the dark figures below. But just as they're about to release the bolts, a sudden roar fills the air. 4 pit fiends descend from the sky like meteors, their enormous wings creating gusts of wind that whip through the battlements. They smash into the artillery with bone-crushing force, their infernal power sending splintered wood and shattered stone flying in all directions. The soldiers stagger back, momentarily stunned by the sheer ferocity of the attack. The pit fiends, with their hulking forms and flaming eyes, stand amidst the wreckage, their presence radiating an aura of terror and destruction. Before anyone can react, the fiends launch themselves back into the sky with powerful beats of their wings. The air is filled with the acrid smell of brimstone as they ascend, leaving the ballistae in ruins. The soldiers scramble to regain their footing, absolutely terrified by the sudden assault.
Hey Joe, why do you struggle to say ballistae so much?
Huh? What's wrong with the way I say ballistae?
I don't know, man. You just keep repronouncing it in different ways every time.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry, Saxy, that I'm being such a pain for you to deal with.
You're not being a pain. It's just really quite distracting.
All archers, open fire!
Thanks, Tronald. The archers atop the walls spring into action. In a flurry of motion, they knock their arrows, draw their bows, and take aim at the retreating pit fiends. The night is suddenly filled with the twang of bowstrings and the whistling of arrows cutting through the air. The majority of the arrows either miss their targets or deflect off the thick, armored hide of the fiends, but a few find their mark. Arrows pierce through wings and flesh, drawing snarls of anger and pain from the creatures. The archers manage to loose a second volley as the pit fiends ascend, each archer firing off 2 shots in quick succession. But despite the impacts, the pit fiends continue their ascent, disappearing into the low-hanging clouds once more.
Archers, be ready if they attempt that again. I want every one of you watching the sky. Keep your eyes on the clouds, on the shadows above. There's no need to look ahead until I tell you otherwise. Those fiends are our priority, nothing else.
The archers nod. Short bows are raised, arrows knocked, and eyes trained on the sky, ready for the next sign of the fiends.
Well, that's our artillery fucked. At least the stuff that can reach. Guess we've got no choice but to wait again. What are they doing now, Joe?
Well, with no more visible threat to them, the remaining 48 Obitus members begin to walk forward, positioning themselves in front of the horde of meat shields. As they advance, they pull out scrolls, each one unfurling a parchment filled with arcane symbols, and start chanting in unison. The sight is perplexing. Dozens of scrolls, more than you've ever seen in one place, being used simultaneously. The air vibrates with the collective incantations, the strange harmony of their voices creating an unsettling melody. You can't help but wonder how they came to possess so many. Tronald, as you observe, nothing seems to happen immediately. This leads you to believe that whatever spells they are casting are not instantaneous. The air around them shimmers with latent energy, the ground beneath their feet subtly pulsating with magical force.
I don't like this at all. Even beyond the imminent threat, how the hell do they have access to so many magic scrolls?
Is it possible that Vizuriel has some way of, like mass producing them?
At this point, I can only imagine he's capable of anything, so it wouldn't surprise me.
As you watch the minutes tick by, the chanting of the Obitus members continues, their voices a haunting chorus in the still night air. Suddenly, a change occurs. The tree trunks that the undead had dragged there begin to shudder and twist. Splinters fly as the massive logs shift and contort, bending to an unseen will. Bark peels away, revealing the smooth, freshly formed wood beneath. The trunks whirl, their shapes transforming. Pieces break off and reassemble, creating intricate mechanisms. Great beams rise and connect with others, forming the sturdy frameworks. Wheels emerge from the splintered chaos, attaching themselves to the newly formed bases. Simultaneously, other trunks reshape into massive arms and crossbeams, their parts interlocking with a precision that speaks to the power of the magic at work. Within moments, you realize they are fabricating catapults and siege towers, formidable engines of war taking shape in the blink of an eye.
Well, here we go then, guys. I really hope I don't die again.
A heavy silence falls over the battlefield, the calm before the storm. The ground beneath your feet seems to hum with anticipation. Then, with a bone-chilling roar, the horde of zombies surges forward. The sheer number of them is staggering, a sea of decayed flesh and hollow eyes rushing toward the battlements. Amidst the slower moving towers being pushed forward, you notice massive ladders being carried by the undead, their skeletal and rotting hands gripping them tightly. The siege towers creak and groan as they are pushed, their wheels grinding against the earth. The catapults are readied, their deadly payloads being loaded by the ogres, poised to rain destruction upon the city. The ladders, carried by the relentless horde, sway and bob as they are brought closer to the walls, ready to bridge the gap between the attackers and the defenders.
So it begins.
Suddenly, the enemy's catapults unleash their deadly payloads. Massive rocks are hurled into the night sky, arcing toward the city with terrifying speed. The first projectiles smash into the buildings within Whitewillow, obliterating homes and shops in an explosion of timber and stone. The impact sends shockwaves through the streets, debris raining down like deadly hail. Flames erupt from the shattered structures, casting a hellish glow over the scene. Another volley targets the battlements directly. Huge stones crash into the walls, sending chunks of masonry flying. The once sturdy defenses tremble under the relentless assault. Archers atop the walls, focused on the approaching horde, are caught off guard. Several are struck by the deadly missiles, their bodies flung backward, limbs twisted and broken. One catapult shot strikes a guard tower, the force of the impact shattering it into splinters. The soldiers within have no time to react as the tower crumbles around them, their cries lost in the roar of destruction. The air fills with dust and smoke, the acrid scent of burning wood mixing with the metallic tang of blood. Amidst the chaos, the defenders struggle to maintain their positions. The relentless barrage from the enemy catapults turns the battlements into a scene of carnage, bodies and rubble littering the ground.
Men, catapults, send these foul beasts into the abyss.
Raarh, it's at this point you arrive back and see Saxy waiting by the catapult where you left him.
Hey, Saxy, my man, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Just waiting here for Tronald to give the command.
I've already given it, goddammit.
Seems like a lot of boulders are flying into the city, so yeah, just glad I haven't been hit yet, or our payload. Wait, why do you have a bunch of dicks wrapped around your neck?
Oh, yeah, well, you see, they're magical cocks. They give me power, Saxy. They give me power.
I find that really hard to believe, but out of curiosity, what kind of power?
Well, you see, firstly, they give me... The first thing they give me... Help me! The first thing... Help me! Shut the fuck up! I'm trying to explain my cock powers!
You know what? Don't worry about it. Just show me when the time comes.
Hey! Are you guys down there deaf?
Oh, 1 second, Raarh. Tronald's trying to talk to us. What's up, Tronald? What did you say?
What I said was...
Send these foul beasts into the abyss!
I've got you, man.
So, yeah, anyway, about my powers.
Guys!
Joe, I released the catapult.
Saxy, you strike the fuses of the boomsticks. The flames catch, hissing and sputtering as they start their countdown. Then you release the catapult. The massive arm of the siege engine swings forward with a powerful creak, launching the deadly payload into the air. The bag arcs gracefully through the night sky, a dark shadow against the backdrop of chaos below. The bag of holding crashes into the ground amidst the horde of undead, its impact causing it to split open. The gunpowder and alchemical fire spill out, scattering across the battlefield like sinister confetti. For a brief moment, everything is still. One of the zombies, driven by some dim spark of curiosity, leans down to investigate. Its bony fingers grasp a piece of the spilled contents, lifting it to inspect more closely. Then the glyph activates. A blinding flash of light erupts from the ground, followed by a thunderous boom that drowns out all other sound. The explosion is cataclysmic. A shockwave tears through the ranks of the undead, sending bodies flying in all directions. The air is filled with the roar of flames and the deafening crack of splintering wood and evaporating flesh. The ground trembles as a massive fireball engulfs the immediate area, incinerating everything in its path. Damn. This is going to be one hell of a showdown. If you guys are enjoying the series, you would make Raarh so incredibly happy if you'd share it around. It seems like YouTube isn't really pushing us out too much to new people, so...
So you guys are going to have to give us a hand. The whole world must know about my cocklace.
You.